Thank you very much for staying with us. The theme of this year's Persons with Disabilities 2025 is fostering disability-inclusive societies for advancing social progress. The objective of the theme is to make sure that each person with disabilities is treated with dignity, rights, and full participation in society. This year's observance builds directly on the momentum of the second World Summit for Social Development held in Doha on the 4th to 6th of November 2025, where world leaders reaffirmed their commitment to building a just, inclusive, and equitable world. Today, we'll be exploring what this important day means for our society, the progress made so far, and the challenges still facing persons with disabilities in Nigeria. Honorable Bashir Dawodu is on the program tonight as the Chairman House Committee on Disability Matters. He'll be sharing with us his vision for inclusion, what the government is doing, and how we as individuals and communities can support empowerment and equal opportunity. Honorable Dawodu, thank you very much for joining me this evening. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm very glad to be here.
So, this day is another troubling reminder that millions of Nigerians with disabilities remain invisible in the country's national development plans. You know, on Monday, I was speaking with Dr. Jacob Pele. He was not pleased that no persons with disability was included in President Tinubu's ambassadorial list. For him, this shows that we have not really made progress. And when you also look at the report from the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities, as many as 35 million Nigerians live with one or more disabilities. Yet, despite the scale of the population, many still face daily barriers to basic services, social inclusion, and meaningful participation in society. And this is a conversation you and I started about 2 years ago. Why are we still struggling?
Thank you for reminding me of that, you know, that we had this interview before. And once again, I'm very glad that you are putting a searchlight on this very, very important issue. Just like in other aspects of Nigerian life, the disability community is not exempt. We are still having a community that is facing stigmatization, discrimination, lack of access, lack of accessibility in terms of transportation, education, health, and very importantly, the lack of employment. So those challenges are still there. But the way I would like to look at it is that to say that we're making baby steps, but we're not where we should be. I think from the Nigerian context, just like you see in other climes, the important thing is that your house passed the Disability Act, which you are very familiar with, 2018, with moratorium. And the 10th Assembly has gone as far as to have resolutions to implement the compliance of MDAs, looking at it from the perspective that when we do for the disability community, we are not doing charity that is about rights, protection of rights, as well as welfare of persons with disabilities in Nigeria. So on that particular note, the committee has conducted oversight into several, I would say at the last count, probably about 20 MDAs with very significant findings. We find that there is a very high unawareness about the law and high non-compliance of the law, which has to change if Nigeria is to move forward. That's in terms of the House. Since the last time you and me spoke, I can also tell you that in the parliament, in the Nigerian parliament, we now have the presence of sign language interpreters, which is the first time in the history of Nigerian parliament. Also in this parliament, to set an example, the National Assembly was audited for accessibility of persons with disability. So that's what I mean by baby steps. The same law established the National Commission for Persons with Disability, and it is this Disability Commission that is empowered to implement the policies of the federal government in terms of disability matters That would be my short response to that.
And I'm happy you called them baby steps. But of course, the challenges you've highlighted so far show just how wide the gap is. But I'm also wondering, how does this year's theme align with Nigeria's current disability agenda? What message would you want Nigerians to take away from this year's theme or commemoration?
Yeah, the great thing about Nigerians' commitment is that if you look at the Renew Hope agenda, disability strongly features there. There is no doubt about that this presidency and this government is committed to disability. And I can understand the concern of Jake Epele that we still think that there is not inclusion as we would like in terms of the cabinet, in terms of the ambassadorial list and all dimensions of the Nigerian life. I think the way I would look at it is that we have to be persistent and in terms of our commitments and reminding the government and governance that the Nigerian society is incomplete without 35 million Nigerians getting involvement in these activities. Let's face it, non-inclusion is expensive because when you are excluding more than 35 million people, you are excluding a significant sector of your productive life. So we have to continue to ensure that in our climate, that there is no excuse for lack of inclusion. That's why we're looking at it from the legal perspective. But in terms of governance as a whole, there's still much to be desired. Actually, not only in the federal government, I would say even when it comes to the state governments. Believe it or not, as at now, there are some states that have not domiciled the Disability Act. This will shock some people to know. So, but from our own angle, we will not stop in terms of pressuring those in positions of authority to make the difference. Thank you very much for the question.
And to be very frank, Honorable, I mean, this is a very serious conversation. Nigeria has a population of over 250 million Nigerians, and we have just 35 million Nigerians living with disabilities. And I'm wondering why we're still talking about baby steps. Your committee has oversight over the implementation of the Disability Act, and as of 2025, only 23 or 23, yes, you said 24 earlier, of these 36 states have enacted these laws, and only 15 have functional agencies. How is your committee holding non-compliant states accountable?
Yeah, that's a perspective, observation that you have. The Nigerian structure, when you look at the Constitution, is quite explicit. You have the executive, you have the judiciary, and you have the legislature. And the way it works is that when the federal legislature passes a bill and is signed into law to become an act by the president, in this case, President Buhari, it now goes to all the states to domicile the law. So the way this is usually done, of course, it's not done under duress, it's not done by force. It's going to be more of a persuasion and making the governors to recognize that this is an interest. I mean, these days when we are even talking about security, we have had reports that some of the folks in the disability community act as lookout for some of these bandits because they are the lowest run of the society. So you're right, more needs to be done on the subnationals, even in the local government, to make sure that when you and me talk again next year, we're not going to be saying the same thing.
You know, I asked that question because in 2024, you publicly lamented NDA's failure to comply with the Disability Act. But a year later, there is little visible change, and we're still talking about baby steps. What are the results, or what concrete results has your committee achieved since that public hearing? And kindly hold on, sir, how are you also ensuring that these MDAs comply with accessibility requirements? Honorable, did you get that?
I didn't hear that.
I was reminding you of how vocal you were. Can you hear me now? I was reminding you of how vocal you were in 2024 when you publicly lamented MDA's failure to comply with the Disability Act. But a year later, we're still talking about baby steps. There is little visible change. So what concrete results has your committee achieved since the public hearing, and how are you ensuring MDAs comply with accessibility requirements?
Oh, okay. I think, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, then I will take it from the way I understand what you're saying. There is no doubt. I remember we had that conversation, and I've also stated that we have visited over 20 MDAs and found them to be lacking. So the question is, what did we do? What the Constitution allows us to do when we do oversight is to come up with reports. The reports are sent to them, and if we think that there are sanctions, the sanctions are actually implemented by the National Commission for Persons with Disability, which is where the referral were made to. The National Assembly is not in position to establish the sanctions that we think might be very effective in this case. What we tend to do is come up with reports, but we have other areas where we can add. Part of it is budgeting, which we can ensure that when the budgets are done by MDAs, that they take into cognizance inclusion of PWDs in their everyday activity. And I think we're doing that. Thank you for the question.
So let's go back to state and the efforts you're making so we can have full compliance, especially with these governors. And I would like for you to provide a breakdown of which states remain compliant, and is there a timeline for enforcement or follow-up visits by the committee? Honorable,
I didn't hear the last part, but
I want you to give us a timeline. Is there a timeline for enforcement or follow-up visits by the committee?
I think there's a timeline for there's a timeline which is the duration of the time of the 10th Assembly for the MDAs, the ministries, departments, and agencies. There is no timeline for enforcement or compliance of the states. And then you are talking about the separation of powers. But I get your concern and your passion about this situation, and I feel the same way. But we are very limited in terms of getting the governors to comply with the law. But we have more strength in terms of ensuring that the MDAs comply with the law. So the timeline for the MDAs is during the duration of this 10th Assembly. The answer to your question is that no, we don't have the timeline to and the powers to investigate the governors in this case. Thank you for the question.
What about a breakdown of the states that have remained non-compliant?
Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, sure. I mean, you're talking about 23. You're talking about 23 states which I cannot recite right now, but I know that Lagos is compliant, Oyo is compliant, and what we'll do, I can send you the list of the states that are compliant when I get out of the studio.
I'm interested in the states that have remained non-compliant. But let's move on quickly. Right. Inclusive education remains largely theoretical. Honorable, what exactly are the policies that this committee has pushed so far to ensure schools and tertiary institutions adopt inclusive practices? Honorable Dawodu, are you having challenges hearing me?
Yes, I am.
But can you hear me now?
But I can, that you were talking about the education, the issues of
inclusive education. What policies has your committee pushed to ensure schools and tertiary institutions adopt inclusive practices? how far have we gone in creating truly inclusive educational environments for children with disabilities?
All right. Once again, this is actually a teachable moment, that we need to emphasize the separation of powers. What are the functions of the National Assembly and what are the functions of the executive? This is what the committee has done in terms of education, the Ministry of Education as well as UBEC. We have actually oversighted UBEC, which is in charge of primary education. And we observed that if you look at the UBEC Act, 2% of their budget was supposed to go to disability. So that is an area that we have looked at and we're still looking at, because we actually find that there is non-compliance in terms of what we are doing. And that is an area that we need to really pursue when it comes to when they bring their new budget. Yes, but in terms of really carrying out the everyday activity of special education, this is like we were saying earlier on, is that the purview of the states and the local governments who are responsible for education. Now, when it comes to the federal government and the universities, we're in the process of oversighting the universities to see how well they are complying with the inclusivity of persons with disability. Thank you for the question.
What exactly are the biggest barriers? Is it funding? Is it training? Is it infrastructure or policy?
Okay, yeah. The barriers are actually quite significant. The way you look at it is that on one hand, we talk about inclusion. I think in some instances, the educators strongly feel that there are some children with disabilities that cannot be in an inclusive setting. But this is what the law says. The law says that, that every child with disability shall have access, must be educated until secondary school level. The law also says that educators should be well compensated, and then their education should be subsidized. The law also says that there should be inclusive environment for persons with disabilities so that they can fully integrate it. It also says that, you know, assistive devices and accessory devices that are needed to ensure education of these children should be provided, like Braille or the presence of sign language interpreters. No doubt about that. But I think your question is how well as these education districts or education ministries complied with the Act. I think if we are not able to get this done on the state and local government level, we still have a very long way to go. Thank you for the question.
But because of the conversation you raised earlier, I'm interested in knowing the current number or percentage of disability-friendly schools nationwide, and how many more are being built under your watch. Did you get that, Honorable?
Well, once again, if you look at the way schools are set up in Nigeria, the schools are set up by the state governments and the local governments. The federal government is just having this overarching view of the education in terms of policy and providing funding. Even UBEC, it's not at the center of constructing or building schools. They do some of that. The answer is that that is an information that is like other parts of the disability society, the community. What we find is that we really lack data. For example, we say that there are 35 million persons with disability in Nigeria, but we don't have the exact data. But that's an area that should be seriously looked into, that how many of the districts and how many of the states really have inclusion as their mantra.
All right, Honorable.
Thank you for the question.
Right, we'll take a break now, and when we return, we'll talk about what is being done to improve employment opportunities for persons with disabilities. Please stay with us, everyone.